Welcome everyone to the first episode of the Warfront podcast. On today's podcast, we're gonna be talking about the Battle of Vimy Ridge.
My name is Charlie.
My name is Nick, and I have some questions for Mr. Charles, Mr. McGahee here.
All right, go ahead.
So, can you give us a little background on Vimy Ridge?
Sure. Vimy Ridge. It's in northern France. The Battle of Vimy Ridge itself took place in April of 1917. So the height of World War One. It was under German control for 3 full years. Both the British and the French both tried to take it, and with no success from either of them. Um, but the Battle of Vimy Ridge is just one of the most important battles to Canada, really, in World War One.
Yeah, that's all interesting, but uh, uh, so what caused this Battle of Vimy Ridge?
Uh, I wouldn't say something really in specific. I think it was more at the start of World War One with the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, and then um, the Allied. There wasn't the start of the Allied push to end the First World War, but um, it was it's not really a cause. It just kind of happened. It was what was the Canadians. They're like, hey, we need to take this ridge. We got to show them. We have to prove our point. We have to make our mark.
Yeah. So, another question are what are some of the effects that came from the ridge?
Um, for Canada, anyways, it brought them a big sense of nationalism. Right, the country was founded in the 1860s, so we're not really old, right? We're still fairly new, and to have a fighting force that took something that both the British Empire couldn't take and the French couldn't take is absolutely astonishing. Really, it's a miracle how they even pulled it off.
Yeah.
And it brought back nationalism to Canada on the home front. It said, hey, we can do this. We're barely even 50. We have made our mark. We can do this. It brought a big sense of nationalism. Um, it also brought some new military tactics to light, like the creeping barrage. It was an artillery barrage that was unbelievably successful somehow. It was a very high risk, high reward. If they missed their timings, hundreds of thousands maybe could have died, but they were very, very, very precise. They trained for months on it. Um, and I'd say the last real effect from Vimy Ridge really was the amount of casualties and deaths that came from it. Not just Canadian or Allied troops, but as well as the German troops, because in a war, regardless of what side you're on, you're going to be losing people, regardless, right? So it brought down morale on one side and it brought up morale on the other side. So I'd say, um, in a sense, the deaths brought up morale for one, but it brought some down for the other.
So it brought like a sense of patriotic feeling
Yes,
to
yeah,
Canada,
yeah,
and like it gave the soldiers and commanders of the Canadian Armed Forces confidence
yeah.
in the battles.
Oh yeah,
With the next couple of battles, it gave them confidence, like knowing like oh, we can do this now.
oh yeah.
We know this. We can do this. Let's do this. So another question was, lots of people say Vimy Ridge was significant, but what was exactly significant about the Battle of Vimy Ridge, especially to Canadians?
Well, that's a really good question because up until now, there was not really a time where all Canadian divisions were brought together for one thing. But the Battle of Vimy Ridge brought all four Canadian divisions together to fight together against one enemy on the same battle. It was a miracle. There was around 100,000 or so, give or take, Canadian men there that morning, which was at that time in 1917 around 1.25% of our entire population, which is unbelievable. 1% of a whole country at one battle. That's remarkable.
That's incredible.
Um,
That's remarkable.
it was it was crazy. It gave motivation not just to Canada, but it gave it to the French. It gave to the British. Um, it gave to other resistance fighters who are out there. It brought down motivation to the Germans because, well, holy crap, we just lost a ridge that we were holding for the past 3 years to these nobodies.
Yeah, to these
And
in like a couple of days.
in 4 whole days, they just lost something they held for 3 years.
Yeah.
Remarkable.
Like the French couldn't do it, or the
Oh
British
yeah.
couldn't do it. It took them like 4 whole days, an entire week
Oh yeah.
to capture a hill. I believe it was a hill 493.
I don't know the exact though, I'm not gonna lie to you, but another very significant thing from Vimy Ridge is the Vimy Ridge Memorial.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Um, I believe it was around 6,000 pounds of marble was brought in after World War One to build the Vimy Ridge Memorial for the Canadian troops who all died. There's over 11,000 names on there.
Yes.
And another significant part from Vimy Ridge is that there was over 10,000 injuries. There was over 3,600 deaths, and the Victoria's Cross, the most highest medal you can get for honor in the Commonwealth, was awarded to 4 different Canadians. Sadly, 3 of the Canadians did pass, but one of them did survive. He was a captain. Um, I don't want to say he was a great guy because I didn't know him personally, but I'm going to assume he was a great guy. But there was very significant to our troops because of the actual. It was we were just all there as one. We were as a nation fighting as a nation.
Yeah. So, what's your inter interpretation on the Battle of Vimy Ridge?
My interpretation of Vimy Ridge uh, is probably one of the best battles that has ever happened in Canadian history. Um, there was very, very. There's a lot of training. There was
Tons of training.
I think there was
Tons.
over 6 months of training leading up to this, and I think it was the most well planned battle in Canadian history during the First World War for sure. If not, maybe the Second World War, maybe behind D-Day, but I still think
That's a close one.
close one. But
That's a close one.
for World War One for sure, absolutely, it was the most well planned battle in history. In World War One history for Canada, anyways.
Yeah.
And it was a time where Canadian troops earned their stripes.
Yeah.
They made their mark. They say, "Hey, we're here. We're doing this." Right?
But correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't the Germans call the Canadians like storm
Yeah,
troopers after that?
They called them. I don't think it was. It might have been before that, but for sure they definitely they called them stormtroopers
Yeah.
afterwards for just how aggressive they were and just the sheer amount of numbers
Yeah.
that came with them.
Were there any controversies around the Battle of Vimy Ridge?
Um, there was a few. They're all something to do with nationalism and saying Canada didn't develop their sense of nationalism at Vimy Ridge. It was the Battle of Passchendaele, the Battle of the Somme. But I'm I'm fairly confident in saying that in my research that Vimy Ridge it was a place for Canada to gain their sense of nationalism.
Yes.
100%.
Yes, of course.
And everything else is something like, oh, was this fake or this fake? It was all some random mumbo jumbo.
Yeah. So there were a lot of different perspectives from the Battle of Vimy Ridge.
Yeah.
From the Canadians, the Canadian side. Do you know anything the German side?
There is a few stories that I have heard in the past. There was one from this, I believe he was a German general, and he was I'm basically gonna paraphrase this. He was saying something like there's extremely heavy artillery fire coming down on the sector of Vimy Ridge on the night of April 8th going into the 9th. And just as usual, and he said it's destroyed all of their like fortified positions in that sector. Um, and he said there was like he called it a week of suffering because they had no communications with the front line after what Canada had done. Apparently, he said there was over 1 million shells that were fired on Vimy Ridge, which is amazing. It's out of this world, really. It's crazy. But yeah, it's most of German perspectives. This is just a major. There's a lot more to be. We were pelted with this until we couldn't, continue anymore, and this and this and this, and it was all just something like the Canadians were just on our butts the entire time. They came in of nowhere and just took it.
Yeah. So like another question is, what was their primary motivation to take the ridge? And you know the primary motivation.
Um, I don't really know if there's like more than one motivation than besides taking the ridge. It was a very strategic standpoint in the war. It was on the believe it was the Western Front. I may just be no, it is Western
Yes,
Front.
it is
I'm just losing my marks.
it is the Western Front.
Yeah. But it was a very, very important strategic position. It was with kind of the British in the Battle of Araz. I think that's how I pronounce it. But it's an extremely important position that, the Germans had held for 3 years, and they said, hey, we need this ridge if we want to go home next year or later on this year. We need to take this ridge so we can free the French people. So I think their motivation is just we want to get home. This is the quickest way to do it. Let's get this thing done and let's do it now, right? That's what I think is the most like
Yes.
motivation for it.
Um, just there's another quick question. What were the like for the casualties? Like the some of the casualties balanced on like both sides, or was it like more German casualties or more Canadian casualties?
Uh, I don't know. I think the Germans had a little bit or a lot more than the Canadians did because, as the German major had said, he said over 1 million shells in a week, which is that's a lot.
That's
That's
like
a
a
lot.
ton of
On like a
that's
12-kilometer ridge, 1 million. That is you're bound to hit someone. It, the odds are just stacked against you.
once or twice a year bound to hit
Oh,
someone.
at least. So I'm fairly certain that the Germans had more casualties on the Battle of Vimy Ridge than the Canadians did. But yeah, I
Yeah.
just either way, death isn't good.
Yeah. To summarize everything that you said, who would you say who's the most important part about this Battle of the Vimy to the Canadians?
Um, Probably I'm going to bring back from what I said earlier, but I'm going to bring up nationalism. Right,
Yeah.
our country was still considered a dominion of the British colonies, and we were just a little guy, kind of like Australia and India. But after the Battle of Vimy Ridge, we we gained a sense of nationalism. We were our own country. There was no more, hey, we didn't need the British. We're fine on our own. The British didn't help us here. We can do this. If the British can't do it, then we can do it. And on I believe the Treaty of Versailles, Canada had its own separate signature instead of being under the dominion of British colonies. So it's incredible, really.
Yeah. And just one more quick question for the final question. Who was the overall commander of this battle or the operation Take the Hill?
Um, uh,
I've,
yeah,
I've,
yeah. How
I,
about you answer this? Because you also know a little bit more
I,
about this.
I'm pretty sure. I could be completely wrong, but I'm pretty sure the general in charge of the bridge attack was the General Arthur McCurdy, I believe.
Um,
I could be wrong on that.
mm, I'm just trying to remember here. I'm fairly certain it was something along those lines.
I'm pretty sure it was Arthur Curry. I'm pretty sure I can. I figure remember seeing Arthur Curry somewhere,
Yeah,
but I could be wrong as well.
yeah. Any more questions?
I do not have 10 more questions. I thank you very much for joining us today,
Oh, no problem.
and we'll see you next week for another podcast.
All right. If you have any questions or suggestions that you may be wondering, uh, visit our YouTube channel at the Warfront Podcast. Um, Yeah,
Yeah.
go down there. Sweet.
All right. Enjoy your time.
Thank you.